Hi, and welcome to the show where we share the stories of the many who intersect with our healthcare system but are rarely heard from. My name is Kevin Pho, founder and editor of KevinMD. Today in the show, we have Syed Nishat. He is a financial advisor and he wrote the KevinMD article, 8 Estate Planning Mistakes for Physicians to Avoid. Syed, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kevin, for having me.
So we'll get into your article in a little bit, but first off, can you share your story and journey to where you are today?
Sure. So, Kevin, I'm a first-generation immigrant. I was born in Bangladesh and came here as a foreign student almost 21 years ago, and immediately fell in love with this country. And I want to settle down here. And I graduated from University of Nevada in bachelor's degree, but that was on the heels of September 11, and it was impossible for me to get a sponsored visa that I needed to stay in this country. So I was actually staying in California, working in 7-Eleven and part-time internship and about to go back. And then I actually get a call from a friendly broker dealer in New York City. And they wanted to sponsor my visa and wanted to hire me as a stockbroker to do cold calling. It wasn't the ideal job I dreamed of, but and I remember when I called my dad back home and I told him I want to be a stockbroker, he sounded very disappointed and asked me to come back home and hang up the phone. And I don't blame him because he didn't grew up with the financial planning concept that considered to be norm here. But that gave me actually an idea to start reaching out to the fluent first generation immigrant in US and speak about the importance of financial planning. And coincidentally, when I was reaching out to them, I was actually getting physician client, is because if you read a statistic by Journal of American Medical Association, 1 out of 6 medical professions are foreign born in US. And they have a similar story, humble story like me, similar background. They came out of nothing and work hard and make a fortune. So we connected very well within the physician community. They come to know us. And in the same company I met my business partner, Adil Zaman. He's from Pakistan. We have a similar background. And we figured out the best way to serve this physician community is becoming a fiduciary. We realized that one thing physicians don't have is time. So we came up with a team of experts from CPA, actuary, attorneys, created a team and formed Wall Street Alliance Group in the year 2010. And it's been more than 10 years. And now we have over 300 million asset under management, and we're providing wealth management solution across the United States for physicians.
Now, from all your years working with physicians specifically, what do you see are the biggest financial mistakes that they're making?
The biggest financial mistakes we are making for physicians right after graduate, they talk about investment. All right, give me Bitcoin, at least for the last 2 years. But we must understand for physicians, they start with a negative debt all the time. At least a few 100,000 is not uncommon to have it. And they're looking is it possible to make the money quicker to pay off the debt? And then on top of it, they have this residency, they have fellowship, and on top of it, they have this pressure in jobs. So it's very easy for them to make mistakes for the shortcut they're trying to take. So what we're trying to explain to physicians, go back to the basic. Go back to the financial planning first. I mean, right off the residency, you don't have to worry about spending the $500,000. You still need to work like a resident and live like a resident for a couple of more years to pay off the debt. Once you do it, then have a budget, then buy a house, have a retirement plan, and then investment will automatically falls into play. And this is where we come into KevinMD to echo the importance of financial planning for physicians.
All right, so let's talk about the KevinMD article that you contributed recently. It was back in April. It's titled 8 Estate Planning Mistakes for Physicians to Avoid. Now, during the pandemic, I get a lot of emails and articles from physicians because of the pandemic. They're realizing their own mortality, and they realize they don't have an estate plan, and they're busy drawing up their wills and creating estate plans. Now, with that in mind, for those who didn't get a chance to read that article, can you just walk my audience through it and share the story of why you decided to write it?
Yes, it's a very good question. So, usually when we talk about a fiduciary financial plan, we talk about investments, asset protection, estate planning, but also we talk about preparing the client for uncertainty. If something goes wrong, you're prepared. But we hope none of this becomes true. But last year, it was an anomaly for us. 80% of our clients get affected. And the situation is like disability, lawsuit, loss of income, loss of job, and even the shocking moment for us, for one of my best physician client passed away.
Hmm.
There's no way to describe his loss, but having a proper estate planning and financial planning give financial peace of mind to the family and allow them to focus on his health during when he was seriously ill. But unlike him, not many physicians are financial savvy. Last year, we're getting a lot of physicians, like you mentioned, they don't have any will and trust set up, they're coming to us. Or they already get a lawsuit, but now they're coming to us. Usually, you should prepare ahead of time. So if something goes wrong, you're actually prepared. So we decided to echo the importance of financial planning through social media. We have been writing in Medscape, Medical Economics, and one of my clients actually forwarded me an article in KevinMD is keep insulting physician, good luck finding them. And they resonate with them. That's a fact. And when we talk about fiduciary advisor, one thing we cannot quantify for physician, okay, what are the other challenges you're facing? Okay, depression, burnout. They don't want to talk to me about this because they feel like still they're a macho man. They can handle it. I can deal with it, but it is there. So I was looking for a safer environment to talk to them about these areas. And because there's no point, Kevin, of doing a financial planning if you're not happy in life. What's the point of doing all of this? So KevinMD, we believe it's a two-way street for us, that we can actually echo the importance of financial planning, and we can take the videos that your audience are actually openly talking about this and share with my clients, so we can have a fruitful conversation and a meaningful life. And that's why we actually came to KevinMD and start to write articles about the estate planning mistakes physicians make.
Why did you go a little bit deeper into the article? So if a physician already has an estate plan or is thinking about starting one, what are some of the mistakes and red flags that they should be looking out for?
So I'll just talk a little bit detailed, obviously not all 8 points. The biggest mistakes we see, if physicians say, okay, I have a will, I'm set to go. I don't have to worry about any estate planning because my assets not too much. You have to keep in mind, if you just have a will and if you die, it's not like tomorrow, the beneficiary gets the money. Usually what happens, the trustee has to take the original copy of the will and send it to court. And the court have to authenticate the will, and then they have to release the fund. It takes some time. It's called probate. Depending on the state you live in, the probate takes between few weeks to few months. But meanwhile, the beneficiary need money. They cannot have access to it. You can easily avoid it by creating a revocable trust as well. And most physicians, like in your show, I see they all talk about passive investment. They talk about investment in crowdfunding. So it's not uncommon for physicians to do multiple different investments, and it's segregated. So make sure that you have a trust and fund a trust as well. So if anything happens to you, that no probate process. That's one of the biggest mistakes we see, number one. Number two, we see it that when you draft the will and trust, they give outright beneficiary under the name of the children. So think logically, if tomorrow the children become older and get into married and get into divorce, the asset becomes half. The best way to give money is through an irrevocable trust, because the assets that are an irrevocable trust cannot be touched in an event of a lawsuit or divorce. This is the second biggest mistakes we see. And the third mistake I will say is asset protection. Like everyone is talking about investments and will and trust, but it's very easy for a physician to get a lawsuit. I was reading an article, according to American Medical Association, more than 60% of physicians over the age of 50 get lawsuit at least once. And this statistic is quite higher for certain professions like OBGYN and surgeon. So make sure when you do a estate planning, it's done in such a way that in an event, if you get a lawsuit, all the assets are protected. And a good financial advisor and estate planning attorney can work together and come up with a good plan for you. So these are the three major mistakes we will say physicians to avoid. But obviously, we can. I'm encouraging readers to read the articles. I talked about the problems, but solutions. Definitely, everyone's situation is unique. They can speak to the financial advisor and come up with a solution.
Now, I get a lot of questions from medical students and early residents. They ask me, how early should they begin thinking about estate planning?
Yeah, I recommend that should be the foundation. You don't have to have a lot of money to do estate planning, because if you do a proper estate planning, it's asked the most important question. Okay, if you die, who will pay your debt? Well, that's the question that you say, hey, I have $1 debt, I have to pay this off. So I have to come up with a budget. All right, who will take care of your children if anything happened. So this actually creates a proper foundation. This is boring. Estate planning is extremely boring. No one wants to talk about it. Everyone wants to go for the best investment idea. But these are the foundations. So we recommend that before doing investment, please speak to your estate planning attorney and financial advisor. Get the basic will and trust done. That will create the foundation for you, the framework for you for overall financial planning and investment.
Now, if a physician is listening to this and wants to pick up the phone and start their estate plan, is there anything they should look out for? Should they look for financial advisors like yourself, estate planning attorneys, anything specific they should look out for when they look for counsel regarding this area?
So one of the good thing about in Google that you have all the information, but the bad thing is that sometimes too much information could lead to a lot of confusion. And then most of the time I was reading a statistic that if you have too much information, you tend to make a bad mistake. So like the way you specialize as a physician in doing something, we recommend going to a specialized financial advisor or estate planning attorney who deals with physician mainly. And I will try to share a personal story with you. 3 years ago, my wife was diagnosed with uterine fibroids. And fibroids are very common in women, in South Asian women, but my wife had over 17 of them. And in New York City, it was very tough for me to go to a physician because we had to perform a myomectomy or surgery. But when we went to the doctor, because of the size and of the tumor, they recommended to go to different specialists to make sure that there's no cancer, no infection. So they recommended a list of different expertise like infectious disease doctor, GI, or fertility doctors to make sure there's no infection there. But every time we call them, there's a long wait, and by the time I get hold of them, they're asking me a question I don't even know how to answer. So we were frustrated, but then we got a specialist referral in Alderman, Alabama, who specialized in fibroid treatment. He mentioned that he has the team of experts we're looking for in-house. He can arrange the meeting in one day, but at the end, he will decide the best course of action for me and for my wife. But long story short, when we went to his office, it was exactly what we expected. And at the end of the day, we were so happy with his treatment that we welcomed his surgery. And this doctor, you can Google him, Dr. Risk. I always speak about him in Alabama. It was a miracle doctor for him. Because of him, and now 2 years ago, we were blessed by a beautiful son. Now, the reason I share the story with you that when you deal with a financial advisor or estate planning attorney, make sure you look for a specialist like this doctor we went to who was a fibroid specialist. And make sure that the financial advisor have the team of experts like this Dr. Hitch. You don't have to go to 10 different places. And make sure the financial advisor is fiduciary like this doctor was for me and for my wife and save our lives. So we recommend highly go to a specialist who knows your situation, who deal with physician and understand their issues.
We're talking to Syed Nishat. He is a financial advisor, and he wrote the KevinMD article, 8 Estate Planning Mistakes for Physicians to Avoid. Syed, if you read my site, and I'm sure you're aware, when you talk to a lot of physicians who are involved in the finance space, they think that physicians should be able to learn about finances themselves. At what point should physicians consider outsourcing their financial planning to a financial advisor like yourself?
So ideally, the investment portion, I do agree that something could be passive. We're not, recommend that the physician can pretty much buy the index fund, who are residents and who have a net worth. Ideally, the question becomes, how big is your net worth? If your net worth is less than $1 million, you can handle yourself. That's the reality. Just buy a passive managed fund and you'll be good to go. But once your net worth starts to go over $1 million, we recommend that hire a financial advisor, and you can actually do it yourself. A good combination would be good help because you need some human touch as well, who can talk about some of the mistakes you can make. And that's why we suggest that a good ideal point would be that once your net worth goes over $1 million, hire a financial advisor, just have a second opinion in your big picture financial plan. And usually the asset under management, you pay the advisor that covers that.
And when a physician looks for a financial advisor, what are some things they should specifically look out for?
Yeah, first they should start looking. It's not a one-man show. That's very important. That a lot of times we see a financial advisor right off the bat. They say, "I do investment management." That's not something you should be looking for right away, because as I mentioned, investment management. A lot of physicians maybe they should be able to do it themselves. But if they say they are fiduciary, the word is there, if they are a fee-only investment advisor, they have a legal obligation to work on the best interest for their client. And they are SEC registered, check their background in FINRA to make sure there's no complaint, no lawsuits, it's clean. And then you can vet them, and you can see that if they're a thought leader and talking about financial planning, whether they're just talking about some great investment ideas, and also speak to them about their background and see how long they have been doing it, what their investment philosophy is, ask the question. And then actually, we also recommend actually start shopping around a couple of financial advisors and get a quote and try to go with the best one you can find.
And my final question, what's your take-home message that you want to leave with the Kevin MD audience?
One take-home message I will leave, that one concern we have it that the physician community, we believe, are not aware of some of the new changes are coming by the Congress, the new tax law that's about to pass, and that will have a detrimental effect, both in estate planning and both in income planning, if it's not done properly. Just to give you one idea, that nowadays in CNBC, you're talking about, maybe listening, that the Biden administration just passed about $2.8 trillion infrastructure bill. And whenever you have a bill like this, the question is how you're going to pay for it. And the best answer is, or simple answer is by raising the taxes. Physicians who make over $400,000 will be affected the most. The taxes will go up from 37% to almost close to 40%. And the state tax, we are seeing that the Biden administration is talking about removing the step-up basis in state planning.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I won't be able to cover what does it mean in detail, but just to give you an idea what step-up means, let's say I buy Apple shares at $100, stock goes to $200. I die, my 2-year son inherited, his inheritance price is $200. That's called step-up in basis. The government is talking about completely eliminating it. So if I die, it will be a sale to my state immediately, and there's an income tax that will be due. So the whole idea is to pay for the $2.8 trillion bill the government is talking about, which I understand. And it is not uncommon for physicians to make over $400,000 if husband and wife both working. So make sure you speak to a financial advisor, not about just estate planning, the tax planning as well, and income tax planning for the estate planning. And a fiduciary financial advisor should be able to take a look at the 360-degree angle in your overall financial plan, and based on your need can create a customized financial plan for you to make sure that you are in the best position possible.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your time and insight, and thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you, Kevin, for having me.